Leads us in our invocation called by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you for the opportunity to pray. I thought I would begin our time of prayer with the words from Lewis Carroll, a familiar work entitled Alice in Wonderland. It reads, "One day Alice came to a fork in the road and saw a Cheshire cat in a tree. 'Which road do I take?' she asked. 'Where do you want to go?' was his response. 'I don't know,' Alice answered. Then said the cat, 'It doesn't matter. Let us pray.' Gracious God, as we come to forks in the road as leaders within this community and faithful stewards, allow us to see your direction and your guidance and to be faithful in our allegiance to your will. Gracious God, we thank you for the dedication of these good people here this night, that we may be warmed by the Holy Spirit and infused with your energies to do good for this community of Fergus Falls. Bless our efforts to your glory. In Jesus' name, let us say together, Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It is Tuesday, January 21st, 2020, and I'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
We have a quorum. First item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the agenda, and I will call on our City Administrator, Andrew Bremseth, if there are any additions or corrections.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members, no additions or corrections this evening.
Thank you, and with that, I would entertain a motion approving the agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll second.
Thank you, Krista. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is two public hearings this evening for the tax rebate program, and I will call on Community Development Manager Claire Beck. Good evening, Claire.
Hi, council members. Hope you're doing well. We have two public hearings on the agenda for tonight for the tax rebate program, and I just wanted to give you a little reminder of what the tax rebate program is. We first talked about it back in November. Otter Tail County approved a program whose goal is to spur investment in single and two-family homes throughout the county. The city of Fergus Falls adopted a sister program to that. The goal is to open up lower value existing home stock to home buyers through a tax rebate of $5,000 over 5 years. We have some resolutions for you to look at. One possible change to resolution language. The original one that was passed through had language saying the tax rebate would be non-transferable. It could be an option to include language that would allow that the rebate to be transferable from either if a builder builds the house, then the tax rebate would be transferable to the family who buys the house and lives in it, or if a single family builds the house and lives in it, I believe, would we say that that would be transferable to one single owner? It would just stay. It would stay with that one family. But if the builder built it and then sold it to a family, then the tax rebate would follow that transaction. So that's where we are. We've got two addresses that are before you to look at. And do you have any questions?
I'm making changes to the resolution. Yes.
I was just going to ask for clarification on, so if a builder builds it, he can transfer it, but if a private citizen builds it, they can't transfer it?
Correct.
Your Honor, Councilmember Hicks, yes. So the resolution that the council passed back in November says that if the property is sold, the tax rebate is non-transferable. And we wanted to make sure the intent was clear that if a builder comes forward to build a new home, because the rules say a rebate has to be applied for prior to breaking ground on the home, that this builder would then be able to transfer the rebate to the person that's buying the home or occupying the home, as long as it's not a rental property. In the event that somebody comes forward and they find their own builder and they're building their home and it's not something that's going to go on the market that a developer put together, we're saying that the rebate then should not be transferred because the occupant of the home has the rebate in their name, it should not be transferred. That was what we understood was the intent of the council by talking about having this non-transferable. So we just wanted to make the clarification. The two before you this evening are a developer, a builder putting these together that's then going to go put them for sale on the market. And we think the rebate should transfer from the builder to the family in that situation.
Yes, it seems to me the intent of the rebate was to incentivize people to build homes, right? So it makes sense to have that transfer from the builder to the first occupant of the home, correct? That's what you're saying?
Yep, that's correct.
Right?
Yep.
So with that, we would need,
Yeah.
we'd need a resolution to amend the resolution if that's what the council is.
No, we're good.
But first, you got to open up for a public hearing, see if there's others that wish to comment on that.
Sure.
Let me clarify, Your Honor. The resolution that I'm referring to is the one that was
Yes.
passed back in November.
That's what I was.
We're fine. We don't need additional action on that. I just wanted to clarify the intent
Okay.
of the council.
Okay.
So the only action tonight after the public hearing would be the two resolutions before.
Okay, so we don't need to amend that one. Okay. Anyone else on the council have any questions before we open the public hearing? With that, we will open the first public hearing for a resolution approving tax rebate for 205 Anna Court. Anyone wishing to speak to this, please step to the lectern, state your name. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing, and it's back to the council. Someone like to offer a resolution?
I'll second.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Caroline. Any further discussion or questions?
Your Honor,
Yes, Anthony.
my concern on this program is that, we're losing kind of property tax, overall, particularly with Hoot Lake, closing down, and I'm not really in favor of this. I think these houses would have got built, and I would be more interested in an analysis of what it's actually going to cost us, to take these buildings off the market. So with that, I would be voting against this motion. Or resolution, sorry.
Yep,
And the same for the other one.
sure. Okay, any other questions?
Just one comment, Your Honor.
Yep.
Tonight, you're approving the abatement itself. There will be a abatement agreement that also needs to be approved by the city council, and that'll come at your next meeting. And then going forward, the agreement itself would be approved on the same night as the public hearing, like the action we're taking this evening. We were just trying to finalize the agreement with that clarification we just had a moment ago about transferring
Sure.
the rebate.
All right, thank you for that. So right now, we have a resolution approving the tax rebate for 205 Anna Court. Roll call, please.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
No.
Fish.
Yes.
Lindberg.
Yes.
Fleming.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Second item is the same resolution, tax rebate for 212 Anna Court, and we will open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to this, please step to the lectern. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing, and it's back to the council. Someone like to offer that resolution?
I'll offer.
Thank you, Krista.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jim. Roll call, please.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
No.
Fish.
Yes.
Lindberg.
Yes.
Fleming.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. There are no bids to award this evening. There are no petitions or communications under the consent agenda. There's a copy in your packet, and there's also a copy on the board for us. There's 8 items on the consent agenda this evening. If anyone has any questions regarding the individual items, we would pull those off and discuss them. Scott?
We had talked of number 7 at the committee of the whole, and I guess I'd like to have that one pulled off, please. The bicycle and pedestrian master plan.
7? Any?
It was the same one that I was going to talk about.
You got it? Okay. With that, I would be seeking a resolution approving the other 7 items on the consent agenda. Thank you, Tom.
I'll second.
Thanks, Krista. Roll call, please.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Lindberg.
Yes.
Fleming.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
The resolution is approved. Item number 7 is a resolution authorizing staff to seek quotes for a bicycle and pedestrian master plan. Scott and Anthony had some questions. Scott, go ahead.
My comment would be the same as made at the committee of the whole meeting, in that I think it's okay to go ahead and seek the quotes, but not with the additional $5,000 that was requested from the budget surplus.
Yep. And I believe that was in the direction to staff, right? So
Yeah.
that would be the understanding is it's the.
The documentation in the packet was still the same, though, so I thought I'd just
Sure.
make that
Just make
clarification.
it clear. Thank you, Scott. And
I would ask, again, before we kind of approve another study, that we kind of get an update on all the studies that we've got going out there and all the projects that we've got money into. This will be, I know we've got some grants and matching funds for this, but we still have to put money into these things, and we've got a lot of them now that are sitting out there between trails and master plans, and I would like to see a summary of how much money we're sitting on and what we're going to do with it before we do another study.
Sure. Thank you, Anthony. And just to remind, this is just to get quotes from the funds that have already been
Yep.
dedicated, right? So just to be clear, we're not putting new funds or we're not authorizing a plan at this point, but thank you, just to clarify that. Any other questions, comments? As we don't have a resolution at this point. Someone like that.
I'll offer the resolution number 7.
I'll second, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justin. Roll call, please.
Anderson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Nay.
Fish.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Under ordinance and resolutions, tonight we will need a resolution approving the assignment of the developer's rights in the TIF agreement as collateral for refinancing with Wings Financial Credit Union. Bill, someone going to call on you to explain that to us? Good evening, Bill.
Good evening. Thank you, Your Honor, Council. Pretty much what the mayor summarized for you is exactly what it is. We have a TIF district. It's number 4-10. It's Sunset Ridge Apartments. These are the apartments located on Pioneer Road. Yep, behind the old Target building up there. So it's 3 apartment buildings up there. The developer's looking at refinancing those and then needs to do this assignment so they can assign the rights under the agreement to Wings Financial Credit Union. Now, within our development agreement with them, the developer is not allowed to assign their rights at all without the city council approval on that. So, for instance, often you see these assignments coming if they're going to sell the building to someone else. You, the city council, want to know where those TIF dollars are going. Well, now it's being assigned so they can refinance the project. So, in substance, not a lot of change there, but technically they need to have your authorization on that. So that's the request before you tonight.
Thank you, Bill. Does anyone have any questions of Bill on this? Someone like to offer that resolution?
Make that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Caroline. Roll call, please.
Anderson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Thank you, Bill. Tonight we have claims, under presentation of claims, we have claims in the amount of, oops, I got the old agenda. Second resolution is a resolution to support the authority to impose a local sales tax to fund special capital improvements, providing regional benefits to establish the duration of the sales tax revenue to be raised by the tax and to authorize the city to issue bonds supported by the sales tax revenue. And I'll call on City Administrator Andrew Bremseth. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Members, as you all know, tonight's kind of the night that we need to make a decision as to whether or not we're going to send things forward to the state legislature in relation to the sales tax. So I'll maybe just recap where we are at, and then I'll cut to the chase here. At the last work session 2 weeks ago, you guys asked the Trails Committee to get together again and talk about what they wanted to do. I'll start there. They had a chance to meet, and they ended up identifying a few projects that would make up the Trails project. The first one being the central segment of the Glacial Edge Trail. That's starting at the Union Stanton Avenue through the dairy property up to the Historical Society. We applied for a grant opportunity through the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails recently and found out that that application was not successful. So they elected to keep that in. They also wanted to have funds in the project for the rehab of the existing Riverwalk from the proposed pedestrian bridge behind City Hall to Union Avenue, since the rest of the Riverwalk will be rehabbed with the grant dollars that we received through LCCMR. They also also added money in for the Old Smoky project, including the lift, the groomers, warming house, snowmaking equipment, everything that goes along with that project. And finally, the Stanton streetscape improvements that we have been talking about as it relates to the Stanton Avenue area going towards the dairy property, tying together that entire downtown area. So that's the project the Trails Committee brought forward and has identified as the way they wanted to go. Now, with that being said, staff was able to compile all of the costs needed for the 4 projects that remained. We indexed inflation to 2022, knowing that that's when the money related to the library would become available, and also knowing that if more than one of these projects were successful, there's a lot of work involved here to get the designs put together and the bidding documents and everything that comes along with that. So that's the rationale. We got everything to 2022 dollars, so everything, of course, went north rather than the direction we were all hoping for. But once we were able to have final cost estimates in hand, we were able to run the bonding schedules that we talked about last time. That's where you figure out how many years it's going to take to pay for these things. That's when you figure out the cost of issuance, underwriting, and the interest that will be involved with the bond. So on your desks this evening, there's 2 scenarios, and I'll start by talking about the scenario that includes all 4 projects. And it's on the screen as well for those who are watching at home or in the audience. And I'll say that when we saw these numbers, we kind of gasped like you all probably did when you first looked at this, seeing that if all of these projects were successfully funded via the legislature and the local vote, that it would be a 28-year repayment. So significant amount as it relates to that. You can see on the bottom that there's nearly 12 or about $12 million in interest if all of these projects were to go together at the same time. So really a significant dollar amount, and this is assuming 3.25% interest, as you can see on your spreadsheet there. Having those numbers in hand caused a little bit of concern for the legislative committee, as you can imagine. So we called a quick meeting together and were able to talk through what a possible scenario may look like to move that number in the right direction. And after going through all of these projects and the numbers, the second scenario is where I direct your attention, and this is the recommendation of the legislative committee. That's to move forward with the aquatics center, the trails project I just talked about, as well as the D-Lagoon upgrades to the campground, fields, lights, all of that stuff. This scenario obviously removes the fire station, and the rationale behind removal of the fire station, there's really three main points. The first being that in talking with Chief Muckow and others, there's time as it relates to when the upgrades in the truck are actually needed. We were anticipating this could be more of a 5 to 7 year project rather than an immediate project. And the other rationale behind it is this is a prime project for state bonding dollars. And when you do projects like this with state bonding, the state pays for up to 50% of the cost. And I just think that that's a good opportunity for this project, one that legislators would certainly understand the need for and buy into, bringing half the project cost back locally here when the timing is right. And then finally, and quite frankly, if all of these projects go together and we moved them all forward, this number is an alarming number. And I would hate to see the fire station, which we all know is a need down the road, get voted down by the voters and then have the city come back in a few years and say, we're going to do it anyway. So to avoid that situation when we all know this public safety need is there and is something that's going to happen, I just think that sends the wrong message. So with that being said, we are recommending that we remove the fire station in this go-around, so to speak. The remaining 3 projects, you can see the interest impacts significantly are reduced. If all 3 of these were successful, this is assuming worst-case scenario, it's a 16-year payback. This also is assuming that we collect 105%, so we build in a cushion. and is assuming that all the projects are successful and would have a 3.25% interest rate. So that's how we got to where we are. That's the recommendation, and I'll turn it over to my committee members.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm going to call on Tom and Justin in just a minute here, but I might call on Chief Muckow just to, if you have any comments. I mean, you've been in the discussions that have taken place. I would just add, we all support public safety. We all support the fire department. I want to make that crystal clear. And the argument I would make is when we're talking about these couple things. First of all, the sales tax thing is important, as Andrew said. There's projects that are eligible for bonding dollars, there's those that aren't. But the sales tax thing is a prime use of projects to bring people to town, right? The second point I'd make is if we believe that there's a public safety project, we need to say yes, that we're going to do that project, commit to it, and then figure out how we're going to pay for it, not ask the voters whether or not we do a public safety project, which I think is an important distinction. Like, whenever we've had a public safety project in the past, we commit to doing it. So anyway, with that, Chief, do you have anything to add as far as you've been involved in these conversations?
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. And I have Andrew kind of briefed me this morning. I was out over the weekend when kind of some of the conversations had gone on. And we certainly are understanding. And one thing, in talking with all this and working with Councilmember Hicks and Hagberg on just seeing that there are needs there, that we felt we had a pretty good plan that wasn't frivolous, and it's kind of our Fergus Falls conservatism, shall we say, just that we don't want to be outlandish and things like that with our ask. And we certainly realize when you put the numbers to paper and what the interest rate does, it does bring the project costs up more than what we were anticipating, and we do feel supported. I guess that from the fire chief standpoint, looking out for our portion of the public safety to our community is just ensuring that the conversation doesn't stop. And I know it's easy to say, hey, we can kick the can down the road a little bit for bonding dollars, but there's never a guarantee, just like the sales tax isn't a guarantee either. But it does push things back onto, just the residents of Fergus Falls, which, again, it's our fire department, but we certainly appreciate the conversation that we've been able to have and understand when we look at the dollars that some things do make sense, and our needs, shall we say, we were forecasting these out 5 to 10 years, so it wasn't an immediate we need this next year because the equipment's failing. It's we have some big ticket items that really are coming due probably within the next 10-year mark, and certainly this was an opportunity to try to capture some form of funding, but I really hope amongst the group that the conversation can continue, like Andrew said, that something else doesn't suddenly come along and we keep in a sense pushing some of our infrastructure needs down the road, because we all know just inflating it out to 2022 what it did for our project costs, and they're certainly aren't going to get less. So no, we are myself collectively understanding what the fire department understand. We also don't want to push it aside and pretend it's not going to exist, because it'll keep unfortunately keep coming up. And you guys were gracious to approve an engine that's $500,000 a few months ago, and really the equipment in the fire service just really isn't getting any less expensive. So no, that's
Thanks,
I
Chief.
understand it. So.
Thanks, Chief.
I'd just like to echo Ryan a little bit, and I do think that the fire station project is important, and I think it provides a little bit of a balance between wants and needs when it comes to the sales tax for the voters to decide on. And I too have some reservations that maybe it gets left on the back burner. And I know we can always talk about state bonding dollars, but again, until it's a guaranteed or it's secured, it's just kind of wishful thinking. So I would certainly hope that we would, when we're looking at these two potential approvals tonight, that we would still have one that includes the fire station in it, even if it comes at a reduced funding than what the current ask is.
Thanks, Chief. Tom, did you want to weigh in on anything?
Sure, yeah.
You've been you're on the legislative committee.
Yeah, and I, first of all, again, want to express our support for, infrastructure and understand the importance of the public services. And, and these projects are projects that people have asked us to do. And these are projects that are going to not only give people and families in Fergus Falls things to do and reasons to stay here, reasons to move here, and make the quality of life better here. It's also going to attract people from outside of Fergus Falls to come to town and spend money. It might, it'll make us more attractive to potential employers that are looking to relocate to Fergus, and it'll make us more attractive to potential employees that are looking to relocate to Fergus. So, these are projects that are going to, I believe are going to help us expand our tax base, and help our city grow in that way. And I think that it's an amount that we are able to handle, and there's a lot of positive momentum in the community behind these projects, and I think that we can get those groups together and keep moving it in a forward direction. And I just appreciate the work that staff has done on it, and I feel good about this being able to pass the legislature, which is a hurdle that we have coming up, is legislative approval. So. Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm happy with what we're doing, and I think we've got good things going here.
Thanks, Tom. Anthony?
Go
ahead.
I would say I'm disappointed that we want to kick the fire station out. There hasn't been a lot of money spent on the fire station physical building itself. And the equipment, obviously, the guys and girls out there look after that and, prolong its life, probably sometimes way beyond what normal people would do. And I think, I would like to see it included. And I think it is a public facility, and it does serve a larger base than just Fergus. And the reality is that, if there's 4 items on the docket, not necessarily all of them are going to get approved when it does go to the public vote in November. So I think, we shouldn't be making that choice for people, at the end of the day. So we shouldn't, the whole purpose of this exercise is to let people have a choice. And therefore, I would say it should be on the ticket to let people make that choice. Immediately we're taking that choice away from people, and we're narrowing it down to 3 options.
Thanks, Anthony.
Jim? Fire station, if we're not going to have it on the docket, I think that we need to at least look at an emergency generator there. I didn't know until this last year that they don't have emergency power. When power goes out around town, they're black. We need to get them some power.
Sure.
To that, Councilmember Fish, we again, through you guys and being very supportive, is in last year's budget negotiations and talking, is we do have it approved for this year, for 2020. So regardless of the sales tax process and outcome in 2020, that we should have a full functioning station generator to help us
Bill.
in that situation. So we appreciate the comments.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Jim. Bill, you want to
Just to tag on with that a little bit, to remind, we were buying the truck that we ordered should be in at the end of the year, and then we would finance that generator along with the balance of that truck, kind of roll them into one package there and get that done, so.
Good.
And with the will of the council, obviously, is what's going to happen tonight. And we've talked through these 4 projects. No one's not in support of any of the projects. From the legislative committee, the recommendation that we're bringing back in discussions with city staff is, we have a hard time going to the voters and saying we're going to have 28 years worth of sales tax and $12 million worth of interest on projects. Whether or not we all understand that probably not all going to be passed, but you still have to put that in front of the voters. The second point is that, to the chief's point, and again, if this, whatever the council wants to do, the legislative committee is making a recommendation, but there are ways to prioritize and to put a fire station on a capital improvement plan, which it hasn't been on in the past, right? It has not been on the capital improvement plan. It was brought up as part of this project. And again, I would just go back and say, if it's a public safety issue, then the council needs to make that decision and make it a priority, and then we figure out how we're going to fund that, whether it's the bonding dollars, whether it's local bonding, state bonding, or through sales tax. So that would be my 2 cents. But if someone, there's two options here. There's other options. If someone likes to move.
I think we have to look at the fact that they may not all get approved by the legislator, so.
My take on that is, during our conversation with the legislators, they really emphasized the regional significance. And one legislator kind of intoned that, that infrastructure improvements weren't necessarily in his opinion, in the spirit of the sales tax. So, I mean, that's not necessarily a guarantee that infrastructure would be approved. But when, again, based on my interpretation of the conversations we had when it comes to regional significance, it was things that were going to benefit, the region and bring people to our community to use our services and spend their money. And granted, the fire department serves, the regional area. And I feel that that capital improvement plan, making that a priority, and working hard on state bonding dollars, we've got a good record with that, and I'm confident that we can lobby for it and get it done. So, I guess with that, I would make the motion that we offer this, or I would offer this resolution with the 3 projects and the 16-year sales tax repayment.
I want to second that. What are other people, any other people have thoughts about including the fire station or public safety projects in a capital improvement versus the versus sales tax? And then do people think we're wrong as far as the 28 years and $12 million? Is that, it's just,
It is disappointing to see that come off of these improvement projects, knowing that the work that has gone in. But I do believe that if it is a need, we will make it done somewhere or another, as long as it doesn't get pushed aside. Sure. That's all I'd like to see, is that it continues, the conversation continues on the fire station remodel.
other thoughts before we vote?
I'd echo that.
Scott?
I think the factor that caught my attention isn't so much the dollar amount, because the dollar amounts, once they get big enough, they're just big. But the years that it pays, the payback time. I mean, 16 years is plenty long. Once you start talking about something getting out there 28 years, I mean, none of us are going to be around doing any of this anymore. And it's going to be people wondering which guy's grandpa was in there that voted for that.
Jim will be.
So that length of time, I think, is what really does it for me as far as the term of the tax being
Jim will be
on.
here.
Jim will be here.
Okay, great-grandpa then. Okay. But it would, that length of time just is what seems to me to be the tipping factor, to want to go for a smaller request, something that, we can see the end of from today.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. Anything else? Any comments before we vote? Roll call, please.
Armisen.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
No.
Fish.
Yes.
Hager.
Yes.
Tawny.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Under presentation of claims tonight, we have claims in the amount of $1,182,596.76. And if there's any questions, we'll direct them to our finance director.
I will offer the resolution to pay the bills.
Thank you. Jim?
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Thanks, Justin. Roll call, please.
Armisen.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Hager.
Yes.
Tawny.
Yes.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Your Honor, I got a question. I should have asked this before.
Sure.
The presentation claims. For the previous resolution for adding that to capital improvement for the fire station, do we need to take any action to make sure those conversations continue, or is that something we need to take any action tonight on, or?
Council's having a work
We have a
session.
work
Maybe
session.
Talk about the capital improvement plans. That might be a good.
Is in February? We have,
February 12th.
February 12th, there's a work session talking about the capital improvement plan, so it's pretty timely, I guess, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Um, We just voted on that, didn't we?
We did.
Did we vote? Yeah, okay. Under Board, Committee, and Department reports, we'll have a 2020 legislative priorities update recommended by the Legislative Committee. I'll call on Andrew Crumpset.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor, members. 2020 legislative session begins February 11th, so just bringing these priorities before you this evening to get your blessing to work on these things at the Capitol. In no particular order, we want to advocate for the state bonding dollar request that we have in for the downtown riverfront improvement project. That's a request of $2.25 million. I talked to our lobbyist today. He's going to seek out advice of the committee to see if we should be trying to squeeze a few more dollars out of that, but that is the dollar amount that the governor has also recommended within his proposal to be approved for the project. So we're in pretty good standing there. Also, of course, the local option sales tax piece we just approved, that'll need legislative approval this session, and we'll need to testify on behalf of that and get that through the process. We want to continue to explore options to minimize the tax impact of Hoot Lake Power Plant, and we're working with the Coalition of Utility Cities on the priorities as it relates to that. Continue to support various initiatives of the League, Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, and other relevant organizations or membership organizations. And then the final two priorities, seek legislative options for reducing landfill rates or offsetting costs as it relates to the landfill. And then finally, the resolution that was approved here about a month ago as it relates to A Place to Belong and working with them to try to secure additional funding for their programming through the state. So those, in no particular order, are the items that we want the ability to lobby on behalf of at the Capitol. If anything comes up or changes, we would come back to the city council at that time to ask for their blessing to do that as well. So this is a fairly comprehensive list with the initiatives of all the various groups, but certainly would entertain any questions that you have as it relates to these items.
Thank you, Andrew. Anyone have any questions on those legislative priorities for the upcoming session? All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Let's get a resolution to approve them.
I'll offer that.
Thanks, Caroline.
I'll second.
Thank you, Krista. Roll call, please.
Arneson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Lankford.
Yes.
Swamy.
Yes.
Ruber.
Yes.
The resolution is approved. There are no reports from staff or administrative officers. There is no old and unfinished business that I'm aware of. There is no new business. I don't have any miscellaneous announcements. Lynn, do you? Does anyone have any announcements?
You mentioned that work session on the 12th of February, but other than that, the calendar.
Sure.
I think, Your Honor, we should just mention that we have traffic lights again.
Traffic lights on Tower Road and Lincoln Avenue.
They're running today.
Yeah, they were repaired today.
And, Your Honor, the annual Noon Kiwanis Winter Carnival, Sunday from 2 to 4, Lake Alice.
Yep.
So be there. Good time had by all.
Be there. All right. Thank you. Anything else? If not, we will adjourn to a closed meeting to consider real estate purchase. Off.